Hey everyone! I'm here today with a book tag that I came up with. This is the first book tag I've ever created myself, but the idea kind of came to me, and I really liked it and thought maybe some other people would like to do it too. So this is called the Brainy book tag, and it is based on my interest in psychology, since I did my bachelor's in psychology and I've always been fascinated by it. So I thought, how could I combine that with my love of books? And the Brainy Books tag was born. So, basically, we are going to kind of go through different areas of the brain, and for each area of the brain, there's a different question that you have to pick a book for. So, the first one is the skull. So, the skull is what protects your brain. So, what book in your collection are you really protective of? And I picked a couple different answers for this one. So the first is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I got this edition of the book last Christmas, and I love it. It's beautiful. This cover design is really atmospheric. There's the back, and it's got these French flaps showing Thornfield Hall. Yeah, I love it. So I'm not letting this one out anytime soon. And the other one is The Song Rising by Samantha Shannon. And this is the limited collector's edition with the cover that matches the original covers the first two books were published with before they redesigned the covers, and I prefer those covers, so I pre-ordered this one, and it is also signed. Yeah, so again, this one is not leaving my collection. Not lending it out to anybody. Okay, the next question is just a general one for the brain. So the question is, what book made you think? And my answer for this one is The Lost Girl by Sangu Mandana. And this one is about a clone who has to go and take the place of a girl who died and basically insert herself into that girl's life. And it really, I think, would do well as being read as sort of a companion to Frankenstein, because there are some very similar sorts of themes. But, stuff comes up like issues of playing God, rights of a clone, what makes a family, all these sorts of things. So it's a very thought-provoking novel. All right, now we're going to get into the different sections of the brain. So first up is the frontal lobe, and one of the functions that the frontal lobe has is to plan things. So the question is, pick a book that you're planning to read soon. My answer for this one is Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. I've read and enjoyed some of Jodi Picoult's books in the past, and this sounds like it's a return to her kind of morality questioning, ethics related, court case kinds of stories, and it sounds like it's a really interesting topical novel about issues of race and racism, so I'm very interested to check this out. Okay, and after the frontal lobes, we are moving to the parietal lobe, and the parietal lobe is responsible for interpreting sensory information. So the question is, pick a book that enthralled your senses. And my response for this one is The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. Kate Morton's writing is really fantastic at transporting you into the time period that she's writing about. She does the historical sections so well, and this one is set during World War II, and her writing really manages to immerse the reader in the gritty wartime kind of atmosphere. Okay, from the parietal lobe, we're now moving on to the occipital lobe. And that's at the back of your brain and is responsible for interpreting visual information. So basically helping you to see. And so the question for this is, pick a book that helped you see something in a new light. And my answer for this one is A Jane Austen Education. How 6 Novels Taught Me About Love, Friendship, and the Things That Really Matter by William Deresiewicz. Sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly. And this one really did help me see some things about Jane Austen's novels in a new way. Particularly my least favorite of the novels I've read by her, which is Mansfield Park. And it actually kind of looked at aspects of Mansfield Park that I hadn't thought about before. So now we're moving on to the temporal lobe. And the temporal lobe plays a large role in memory. So the question for this one is, pick a book that is a childhood favorite you have fond memories of. And my answer for this one is the Alana series by Tamora Pierce. Or I guess officially it's called the Song of the Lioness series, but I always just think of it as the Alana series. This was my gateway into YA fantasy, basically. I probably read them when I was maybe 11 or so. Before then, I really hadn't enjoyed much fantasy that I'd read, and I didn't read very much. I was very much a realistic fiction only kind of reader, and I thought fantasy just isn't for me. And then I read these books, and I was hooked. And I've read so many fabulous fantasy series since, and fantasy is honestly one of my favorite genres now. And I really have Tamora Pierce to thank for that. Next up is the limbic system. And the limbic system plays a really big role in our emotions. So the question for this one is, pick a book that evoked a really strong emotion in you. And my answer for this one is Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. I don't cry very often at books. I actually think I cry more at movies than at books. But I cried at the end of this one. I honestly did. The characters are in a really awful situation, and it's very intense. And yeah, it made me feel a lot of things. Okay, and from there we're moving to the cerebellum. And the cerebellum is the part of the brain that helps you keep your balance. So the question for this one is, pick a book that threw you off balance. So it could be that it unsettled you, or it made you a little uncomfortable, or there was something about it that didn't didn't sit quite right with you. And this one, I picked The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman's writing is always a little bit kind of offbeat and strange, and this book was kind of dark and a bit unsettling and weird, and I liked it, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it was strange. Okay, and the last one is the insular cortex. And this is the part of the brain that is responsible for helping keep our body in homeostasis. So that means that everything's working properly at the right levels, all your hormones are in balance, you're breathing okay, your heart's beating all right. So the question for this one is, pick a book that helped you keep calm and carry on. And my answer for this one is Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. This is a childhood favorite for me and a comfort read, but I also think that the main character, Ella, really, has to keep calm and carry on in this book because she's under a curse, and that's for most of the book. She has to deal with it, and it causes a lot of trouble, but she, manages to maintain her spirit, and she doesn't let it get her down. And I think that's she's a good role model for young readers. That was the Brainy book tag. If you would like to join in, I would love for other people to do it as well, so I can see what your answers would be. I'm not tagging anybody in particular, but if you like psychology, or you just like doing book tags, doesn't matter, join in. Bye!